Hi Internet. Today we are looking at a title entering early access, Arms Trade Tycoon Tanks by developer Fungi. After participating in the alpha, closed beta and receiving a copy of the press release for the early access of the game, I've put well over 50 hours into the title over the last month, and I'm here to let you know if it's worth your investment in picking it up. This game puts you in control of an arms trading company specializing in tank construction and has you researching, designing, test driving and producing tanks to then sell on the open market to be used in conflicts that are erupting around the world. The majority of the game takes place at your company's campus, which houses a number of facilities which cover the main facets of the gameplay. There's the Research Bureau, in which you determine the path of your company will take in pursuing technology of three branches: firepower, mobility, and structure. Researching down these paths will unlock various parts and components, which are then used in your next building, engineering. Engineering is the next step in tank design. Each part consists of a number of subcomponents, and as more technology is unlocked, the player is faced with decisions. Should you optimize that new engine design around being lightweight, having a high top speed, or being super reliable? All designs apart from the first few involve various trade-offs as you try and come up with the most efficient designs for your tanks. Engineering is also where you bring in tanks gained from rival nations and companies. After acquiring these trophies on the world map, you can pull them apart to gain knowledge and to build other tank designs from opposition parts and components. To bring it all together happens in the Design Bureau. This is where all the parts come together and you need to balance the part selection that you've developed in engineering against the constrictions of volume, weight and crew size. You can put together the British tanks from World War I if you follow a more traditional research path, create French or German tanks from the models you've gained through reverse engineering, or what I think is the funnest part of the game, creating hybrid tanks through combining various nations' technologies in what-if sort of situations. There are further buildings, a trading centre to keep your manufacturing facilities supplied with materials, a factory to assign production lines to producing tanks, and a proving grounds for helping recognise and remove defects from your design, and finally the test track. On the test track you get a chance to drive your tank around an obstacle course and see it in action. Although initially I didn't think much of this feature because I was much more engrossed with the Tycoon gameplay features, the level of immersion and extra flavour that it added to the game was not insubstantial. I ended up really enjoying this feature, which was a surprise to me because at the beginning when I first got the game I discounted this part of it, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. The main gameplay on these facilities, apart from the actual researching and designing of tanks, is time management. Everything takes time. It takes time to order in materials from various centres around the world. There's always a chance things can be delayed. It takes time to deliver your tanks to your customer, and it takes time to produce the tanks in the factory with the amount of workers you have in the production facility. In true Tycoon style, this game allows you to upgrade most of the buildings in different facets. You can improve the safety of deliveries. You can improve the time taken to deliver materials to you. You can build bigger offices in the research area to house more engineers to design technologies for you. And each time you go through what the developer calls tiers, so World War I is a tier, the interwars years is a tier, and World War III is a tier, sections off how far you can advance each building. So in the initial gameplay of the early access release, you can only build 4 improvements for each building, but as the design appears to be that as you go through the ages, you can build more production lines into the factory, more production lines into your research, more people to research, and more buildings to provide bonuses. So it really has a fundamental Tycoon gameplay to it. The gameplay loop responsible for the researching, designing and creating tanks and then selling them is strong and compelling. It's the strongest part of the game in my book. If you enjoy Tycoon games or tanks, you will find enjoyment here in this gameplay loop. The worst thing, however, and it's got to be mentioned, is the fact that between every single building on this screen, going between them causes a small loading screen. And it's only 1 or 2 seconds, but it's enough to pull you out of the immersion that you've built up of being in charge of this tank production company. The good news is that Fungi, the developers, are aware of this and they are working as a priority, they've said in Discord, to fix it and bring down the loading screens as much as possible. With your tanks design, the British government, and then the remaining countries in the world, will put out tender contracts to bolster their armed forces with your new machines of war. You will compete against AI companies to win these contracts, aiming to meet the requirement of each contract in terms of weight, firepower, mobility of your machines. At the moment, this is probably the most underdone part of the game, with the AI companies representing a score you must beat. And you can affect your score by manipulating the cost and delivery time of your tanks. So your offer that you put together, unless you have no suitable design at all, can be manipulated to pretty much guarantee you winning the contract. Fungi is promising greater complexity in contracts to come with the further development of the game. The final area of the game is the world map. This is where countries make alliances, trade agreements, and pacts, and, well, war. A living and breathing world that ebbs and flows, continuing along no matter what's happening in your factory. It is here that you'll see your tanks on the world stage and get a breakdown of how they perform in combat, and also gain the opportunity to get trophy tanks from various countries. In my time with the game, I've had a great time. The core gameplay loop is solid and addicting, and trying out different variants of tanks and tweaking various parts of it is an activity that I have spent a long time doing, and I'm planning on spending more. I'm going to continue playing this game. I've already put 50 hours in, and there's still plenty for me to do. So, what is the downside, I hear you ask? Well, I've got two words for you. Early access. There are as many opinions about early access as there are grains of sand in a beach. For every good experience with early access, there's a bad one where the game didn't live up to its potential. The initial offering of Arms Trade will be covering the British gameplay from the First World War, with French and German tanks and technology only being available through the reverse engineering process. 12 tanks in total, and 60 technologies. Contracts will consist of supply and restock requests from the various countries, and the game map will cover Europe, Africa, the Balkans, and the Middle East. Wars will consist of forces ranging from infantry to armoured trains. There's a roadmap available on Steam at the moment, and you can see that the interwar and World War II periods are going to be added to the game quite high on the list of things to do. So it's got good room for expansion, and although the developer has mentioned a release date for the completion of this game in late 2024, with the game being stated to aim for a timeline from 1914 to a modern day year of around 2000, that's a lot of content for less than a year in development, and I would be surprised if they make the 2024 release date. It wouldn't surprise me if this runs over into next year. At the time of this review's publication, there's no price on Steam for the release yet, but I expect this game's going to be aiming around the price point of around US $40. This is speculation. It's what they've been asking for on Patreon, and $40 would get you a copy of the game in the Kickstarter, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they're going to be asking for. And Arms Trade Tycoon shows an excellent beginning of a tycoon game, and this game is unique, and I think it's going to be one of those special games because it is so unique. So for me, it's enough to take a risk on. But at this stage, it is also true to say that it's well short of being a complete product. And with this being Fungi's first game, and they don't have a history of completing projects, well, they don't have a history of abandoning projects either, but there's going to be an inherent risk because it's an early access title that it never reaches completion. But if you're prepared to roll the dice on that, I've had a lot of fun in this game, and I've got a lot of content out of it for my $40. It's less than $1 an hour as far as entertainment value is concerned, so for me, it's a recommend. Thank you. This has been Crash Gaming. Take care, everyone.